here today with Mike Gray. I'm one of the most popular presenters at Talk Radio. By one of this country's best media presenters, Talk Radio's Julia Hartley-Brewer. By Isabel Oakeshott, one of the top political journalists and commentators in this country. The Brexit hero and Conservative MP Nigel Evans. With Toby Young, the founder of the Free Speech Union. Well, yes, Annunciata Rees-Mogg, the former Conservative MEP.
So, thanks for coming on the show, Madeline.
Hello, Tom. Welcome to the channel.
Hi, great to be here.
Now we're joined by the one and only Nigel Farage. How are you, Nigel?
Fine, thanks, Mike. Good, yeah.
Some of us are moving on. Not everybody's apparently accepting the result. Right, let's talk about Greta Thunberg. The EU member states attacked the Commission and Germany are now in trouble. If we need more nurses, we will bring more nurses. If we don't need low-skilled workers, we won't bring low-skilled workers. So I'm currently on Edgware Road and this place is absolutely crazy. I mentioned Owen Jones having this weird meltdown for absolutely no reason.
They don't know what's about to come. This building is about to cause chaos again.
Like one of these, but, well, these are actual real flags, but the European Union flag, one of those fake flags. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening wherever you are on planet Earth, especially the patriots in Britannia. Welcome to tonight's live stream, and hello to everybody in the live chat. We're going to come to you guys to get your reaction throughout the evening. Basically, we're talking about what's been going on between the so-called Brexit Britain and the European Union nutters, because there's a bit of an issue with when we were still a member of the EU until the last second, and Northern Ireland, that is still essentially part of the EU, and now we owe them money for a very specific reason. In this video, we're going to give you the details of what's been happening, why we were fined by the European Court of Justice, and secondly, the biggest problem with this whole story. So, the European Court of Justice, which is supposed to be the referee between any partner and the EU, which makes no sense considering the ECJ is linked to the European Union, so they can't really be impartial. But having said that, this is about the use of private boats and as they say, the private pleasure boats. And in 2018, and this was the time when we were still doing the Brexit negotiations and everything else, but the article was triggered so that we were leaving the EU. And the idea was, the European Union decided to say that red diesel is now banned and the UK has to ban it. One problem was, since 2018 and afterwards when it was basically implemented, the United Kingdom government, they said a lot of stuff happened at the same time. You had the Brexit transition period happening, right? But you had in 2019, late 2019, you had the general election, then you had the lockdown and this and that. That was the excuse from the UK government. But this whole issue happened, most of it relates to Northern Ireland, which is part of the EU, right? The problem we now have is that they are now finding, and we have been fined a huge chunk of money, 32 million, for something that actually could have been prevented, but also why that amount. So this is the actual document that we have from the judgment of the court, the European Court of Justice. Obviously, one side you have the European Commission, and the other side you have the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And obviously, the whole panel of judges were the European Union judges. They're very, very impartial and professional. And then this part at the end, when it says the United Kingdom must therefore be ordered to pay to the Commission a lump sum of 32 million euros. Because the private pleasure boats were still using red diesel, and especially, obviously, when we talk about the near Isle of Wight side and also Northern Ireland side, generally speaking, a lot of them were related to that part. But one main problem is why 32 million euros? How do they come up with that number? So, the European Commission and the way they handle things in terms of their guidelines, and the European judges, the way they punish you or sanction you, they usually do it based on your GDP, size of GDP, as a member or as a partner. Considering that this ruling only applied to Northern Ireland, they still, you know what they did? They still checked the size of GDP for the whole of the United Kingdom. So the judgment on the UK and Northern Ireland, it says that the level of fines against the UK for breaching the EU law in Northern Ireland should be based on the size of GDP of the whole of the United Kingdom, which means the amount that we have to pay now is 40 times more than it's supposed to be. 40 times what it's supposed to be, which if you just go with the size of GDP in Northern Ireland, I mean, firstly, we're not even talking about how this whole regulation and the way we were fined was nonsensical. The court ruling, forget about that for a second. But in terms of the amount, they should have just checked the size of the GDP for Northern Ireland rather than the whole of the United Kingdom. So the whole thing is biased. You get the European Court of Justice judges being biased towards the EU Commission, and based on obviously the red diesel ban, then where the UK government say, well, we didn't have enough time to implement the whole thing in terms of the transition. And we have some reaction as well. The UK government spokesperson said that it was disappointed with the ruling as it had implemented the ban on the particular diesel, there's a red diesel, in these private pleasure boats in 2018, and the dispute was merely about the marking of the diesel, which allows authorities to distinguish between regular and commercial oil. So technicality. They also said, the UK government, that this is ultimately a historic case which began at a time when the UK was a member of the European Union. We have now left. Since then, we have negotiated the world's largest zero tariffs and zero quotas deal with the EU and are now focused on using our Brexit freedoms to the benefits of the British public. Yeah, that's just a classic diplomatic line from the British government. But, I mean, the first part is, we make good points in regards to the historic case, and we were part of the EU, and why should we still be under the supervision of the European Court of Justice? It's not fair, and even if, again, as we said, just applies to Northern Ireland, if we're going to get punished, then why is it that they are basically treating it as it's the whole of the United Kingdom rather than just Northern Ireland? Yeah, and also the comments from the UK government saying we're disappointed, that's not hard enough. You shouldn't just be disappointed. You should be angry. But clearly, we're way too diplomatic in Westminster. That's the problem that we have, the political establishment, when it comes to foreign affairs. Let's go to you guys, get your reaction, and then we're going to talk about other issues that we have this evening as well. Ollie says, we are a sovereign land detached from the bloc. Our rules. Tough as... Yeah, you would think. So, but obviously they say that this still applies. It's a historic case. It applies to when we're still last few minutes of us being a member of the EU, and they're still punishing us. I mean, what if we say we don't want to pay? What are they going to do? I know the Ramonians are watching and saying, "Oh, that's a stupid question, Maya. Of course they're going to sanction you, put tariffs on your products that you're going to sell to the EU." Sure. Is that the best they can do? They can't kick us out of the EU. They can't imprison us. So should we just say we're not paying? Of course, we have a government that will easily surrender. We are not a sovereign nation if we are under the European Court. Boris did a Bino, as we all know, that was a Brexit in name only. Usually I say Brino, but yeah, Brexit. But yeah, so the issue with this was that if you ever wanted to sign a trade deal with the EU, you were always supposed to be accepting parts of this anyway. And this is the whole issue, because the trade deal was a part of the whole of the withdrawal agreement. So one part was the divorce bill and one was the actual trade agreement. And the EU said, we're not going to give you the trade deal if you don't pay us money, if you don't do this, if you don't do that. It's just complete nonsense. £32 million of the taxpayers' money to the Tories is spare change. If there is something they like to do, it is waste their millions abroad. To be fair, if you're talking about the actual Tory party rather than Tory government, the Tory party are running out of money. The Tory government itself, well, it's not their money, it's our money. So there's a bit of an issue there as well. Will says they will just send more, but that is an interesting point. Yeah, that answers the question I asked earlier. I said, what if we don't pay the money? They're going to pick up the phone to Macron and say, can you send them more migrants? You think I'm joking, but that's exactly the sort of mentality that these people have. If you just joined us now, we're talking about the court ruling from the European Court of Justice against the United Kingdom, mostly about Northern Ireland, about the use of private pleasure boats and the use of red diesel, which was banned. And in 2018, the European Commission said, you can't use it. And then we had to do a transition. We didn't implement it the right way. The UK government said we didn't have enough time. We were distracted. But it's a historic case. We were still a member of the EU. Now we are being punished. Now they've told us, the European judges, that we have to pay them 32 million euros, even though the issue only applied to Northern Ireland. This is the document that we have, the judgment of the court. The European Union, they decide your punishment based on the size of your GDP. So considering that this issue only applied to Northern Ireland, what they should have done is they should have checked the size of GDP in Northern Ireland. What they actually did, they looked at the size of GDP in the whole of the United Kingdom. That's why we have to pay 32 million euros. And the problem with that is 40 times more than what we're supposed to be paying, even if we have to pay something. Even if we're forced to pay something, that is literally 40 times more. Okay, let's see what we have on this. Christina says, you are hard to listen to. Oh, thank you. You're coming across as an amateur. What happened to that person last year also who was a part of your team? She seems to have disappeared and you're no better than hers. I'm not sure. I don't know if they're talking about Lacey, maybe. I can guarantee you I'm better than Lacey when it comes to these political rants. But yeah, according to Christina, I am hard to listen to and I'm an amateur. And yeah, so thank you so much for the feedback. Let's go to Ollie again. The 32 million pounds of euros goes where to fix von der Leyen's swimming pool. The problem with this is that the European Union is a massive gravy train, so they don't even have to do embezzlement in that sense, even though there have been some cases recently, which, by the way, went away very quickly. Do you remember recently a few months ago we reported about some of the members of the European Parliament being investigated and there was a police raid and everything else. What happened to that? I've been trying to find out more from friends in Brussels and Strasbourg. Nobody has any proper updates since obviously the initial investigation happened, which is a fascinating thing. LB Crypto says, we love you, buddy. Well, Christina doesn't love me, so... Michael says, you're on the wrong channel, Christina. Maybe you're looking for Novara Media or Owen Jones. Someone else, I don't know. What else do we have on this? John says that the boats can easily be stopped by the use of the 7.62. We can't do that. I mean, if this were the Victorian times, anything could have happened. But, let's see. We have this saying, paid the 32 million and all the illegals as an apology payment. I mean, it will be interesting to see if there's going to be negotiations with the European Union based on what's going on with the border, because they want us to sign up to a new migrant sharing program, which is also opposed by Poland and Hungary. So they can't even get their own member states to agree to something, and they want us to agree to it, which is absolutely hilarious. But we are where we are. There is also a couple of other things. What's going on here? Scarlett says a bit late. Just heard that woman Christina slating you, Maya. No, you are lovely, Maya. Make my day. Thank you so much, Scarlett. But for those of you who join late, I will give you a summary in a couple of minutes. But I want to talk to you guys about other things that has just happened, which is fascinating. There are a number of stories that I will be properly talking to you guys about tomorrow when we get more information. One is actually about Caroline Noakes. If you guys watched the video I did earlier about BBC Newsnight, their panel attacking GB News last night, and they actually ironically broke the Ofcom rules themselves because they're impartial. One of the guests was Caroline Noakes, and I just discovered something fascinating about her. She's supposed to be a Tory MP, but she's not. She's a left-wing Tory. She said during that show that she doesn't go on GB News, and I just found a collection of videos of her appearing on GB News. I'm going to prepare that, edit that for you guys tomorrow. But there is also a couple of issues there. I've just heard that the Prime Minister, Rashid Sunak of Britannia, has actually opposed what Suella Braverman said the other day. So for those of you, if you remember a few days ago, in America, Suella Braverman stood up and said multiculturalism has failed. Everybody kicked off in the mainstream establishment. And even though I already exposed the hypocrisy because David Cameron made the same speech in 2011 as Prime Minister, but because David Cameron was technically a centrist or moderate or liberal, whatever he was, the establishment didn't really mind. But because the messenger was Suella Braverman, everybody kicked off, right? But she was still supported by the Conservatives and a lot of people in the country. She said that multiculturalism as a project has failed. Good. We've just heard, and as I said, I'm going to give you more details tomorrow, but the Prime Minister disagrees with the Home Secretary. So clearly he's looked at some polling data or focus groups, and he's realised it's probably best not to be associated with Suella Braverman. Something has happened basically in Downing Street. It took him a few days, but Rishi Sunak just came out to say Suella Braverman is wrong to say multiculturalism has failed. He's pandering to the Liberal side again. I don't understand why he is a Tory Prime Minister. I just don't understand how the Tory party managed to do this to us. Cleaver says multiculturalism never works. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's in the word. The whole point is the word culture. It's supposed to be a common thing, like language and like many other things. There has to be in each tribe, in each nation, you need to have one common a set of values. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you will completely shut the door to any visitor coming to your country. But if anybody wants to live there and requests to be there permanently, you need to be a part of the tribe. If you're joining a new tribe, you cannot be different to the rest of the tribe. It's not rocket science. It was always like this when it comes to humanity. So multiculturalism, in a sense that you're not integrating and you have your own way of life compared to your neighbors and everybody else in your tribe, at the same time, that means that country no longer has a common set of values. I don't understand why some of the naive liberal-minded people don't understand this, because there are some people who have with an agenda. Some people with the political left-wing agenda, they don't care. They want this to happen. And there are some good, well-meaning people who are just falling for the narrative because they've been told, they assume multiculturalism is multiracialism. And this is the whole point. When we criticize multiculturalism, they say, are you a racist? No, we are. Multiracialism is very different. That's also a big issue when it comes to mass multiracialism in any country. Imagine if a bunch of white people suddenly move to Saudi Arabia or Japan. It's gonna be chaotic. So one issue is multiculturalism, and it's much worse than multiracialism. Multiracialism is, if it's managed, is fine, but even multiracialism could be a problem if you don't control the numbers, because the face of the country will change, and that is linked to everything else again. It's not racist. Oh dear. Anyway, so yes, as I said, Rishi Sunak has just come out about half an hour ago to reject what Suella Braverman said. He actually believes that multiculturalism is a good idea. The guy has lost his marbles. But for those of you who just joined us, just a quick summary, and then we're going to go back to the live chat to get your reaction as well. We're talking about the court ruling from the European Court of Justice, a very professional and impartial panel of judges linked to the EU that decided to fine Brexit Britain over what happened in 2018 when we were still part of the European Union. over the use of red diesel, which they banned. And this whole issue using red diesel was for private pleasure boats. And the whole point was it primarily applied to Northern Ireland. And right now, Northern Ireland is the only part of the UK that is essentially inside the EU single market and customs union. So the ECJ still has power over Northern Ireland. But because it was part of the Northern Ireland, it's still UK, we were punished. This is the judgment of courts. This is the document that we have received. And at the end of it, it says that we have to pay, what does it say? The United Kingdom must therefore be ordered to pay to the Commission a lump sum of 32 million euros. And the way they came up with 32 million euros, this is the biggest problem of this whole issue. The way they punish you usually is they look at the size of your GDP and they come up with a number. The problem with this is that this only applied to Northern Ireland, but the European judges looked at the size of GDP in the whole of the United Kingdom rather than just Northern Ireland, which means the payment that we are paying is actually 40% more than it's supposed to be. They are literally stealing our money and we are allowing them to do it. This is what's happened. Now imagine if you get this sort of analysis from the mainstream media. Good luck with that. All right. So let's have a look at this. Kathleen Wheeler says, inform the European Union that they owe us billions for the illegal immigrants coming from there. You would think, but no. As someone actually said earlier, for those of you who joined late, I said, what if we don't pay the money? What's going to happen? Are they going to kick us out of the EU? And someone said they're just going to send us more migrant boats. So I think it's best if we just pay the money. Robert's saying red diesel was for farming. So red diesel that they're talking about was in this case was primarily for the private pleasure boats. So it doesn't really apply to cruise ships or commercial boats, things like that. It applied to the private pleasure boats. That's what the document also mentioned as well, although it's not on this page. The fiscal fiscal marking of gas oils and the lump sum. Where's the rest of the document? I have to find the page. So actually there was a Guardian. Guess what? Of all the mainstream media outlets and the press, we actually have the Guardian. I just noticed the Guardian reporting it. Let me show you. What a surprise. Although, considering it's the Guardian, I think they're only doing it to attack the UK. There we go. This is the Guardian. The UK fined 32 million euros over yacht fuels used in the last days as EU members. So this is the European Court of Justice says the UK failed to ban red diesel on private pleasure boats within the time limit prescribed. So that is how the problem was created. This was in 2018. And as I said, the issue is that it only applied to Northern Ireland and they're now punishing us for the whole of the United Kingdom. It makes no sense, but that's how these people play the game. So yeah, it's not just there for farming. We have Laney Queen saying France should have paid us money for liberating their country from Germany. I think Germany should have also paid us extra money for liberating them from Germany. See? I know Germany had to pay a lot of money, but we should have asked for more. Add a tax to the French red wine until an extra 32 million is generated. This is a genius idea. We now have good wine being produced both here and in America, actually, in California. Until a few years ago, nobody would have taken Californian wine seriously, and Texan as well. But Californian wine is actually competing really well with the Europeans. So, and we could just get it from Italy, you know. Let's just have Italian wine. I'm not really a wine person anyway. I'm more of a gin and tonic person, or beer. What else do we have here? Jeff is absolutely spot on, saying we should have left with no deal at all. There was no way we would get a good deal. See, this is the whole point. There were a lot of people. Jeff is right, and Jeff is going to be proven right even more in the future, because there were a lot of people. Still very sound Brexiteers, but they were scared, including me at some point. Even I was scared of the narrative of no deal Brexit for a little bit. for like 10 minutes because the way the media was talking about it. And in fact, that was the reason I started this channel, to fight back against that narrative back in 2018-19. The problem with that is that they said you can tolerate this, the deal, Brexit deal, because you would get a lot of benefits, trade. But then now that we have the trade agreement with the EU, you compare the pros and cons. It's kind of not worth it because they would still trade with us even without a trade deal anyway. And we are still buying more from them anyway. So again, people like Jeff have already been proven right, but especially in about 10, 20 years from now, you're going to see. So spot on with that comment as well. Martin Smith says, seize the French fishing boats, then sell them back to raise the money. To be fair, I think it's time to learn from the Iranian regime. The Iranian government, every now and then, they just steal our ships and stuff and boilers and everything else. We should just kidnap people, the French and the Germans, and just say, you could have them back if you cancel the fine. I'm not, by the way, if you're watching this from Ofcom, because we got the online safety bill now in place coming in soon. Ofcom wants to regulate my channel. I'm joking. I am joking. People in Ofcom, this was a joke. I'm not advocating for us to kidnap the French. Also, no one on this planet wants to kidnap the French. If you pay me, I'm not going to kidnap the French. Oh, I'm in a good mood tonight. What's going on here? Oh, that's the European Union Money Laundering Service. Yep. Luke says the best thing we did was leave that dumpster fire. Look at Italy's latest guests. Exactly. Things aren't great right now in this country, but and we're still tied to EU laws that have been in place before. But let's still be grateful a little bit that we are officially not a member. Things could have been much worse. I'm not saying be grateful of this sort of Brexit, but trust me, it could have been much, much worse if we were still actual slaves to the EU Commission. What else do we have? Oh yeah, by the way, there's a few of you watching, and 250 have liked. Please press the like button, the thumbs up. It will help the video to get shared and spread on YouTube and all the other platforms. Let's see what we have. Jeff Williams says, "Oh, jokes allowed? Not anymore. Jokes have been banned. Just ask Christina." Who earlier on, I should have saved that comment. Oh, I got rid of it. Who said I'm an amateur. Apparently I wasn't before, according to Christina, but apparently I'm bad now. I love my job. What else do we have? Sean says, I wish someone could kidnap Macron. Sean, we just said no jokes allowed. Ofcom will come for you. They're going to knock on your door. I called for a no-deal Brexit on BBC Question Time on the 17th of December 2017. Well, thank you very much. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened yet, but you never know. With all the mess and the clashes between the UK and EU, you never say never, because we might actually get to a point where a Labour government or a coalition government would start to have a conversation about rejoining. Not immediately, but at some point. And that could be the interesting situation where the EU rejoiners have to tell the country that we have to join the Eurozone in order to rejoin the EU. And then the Brexiteers could have the alternative solution. Say, well, see, with the Brexit deal, it was always a slippery slope situation. So the best thing to do to keep us safe and actually independent, let's leave. Let's just get rid of the deal. Let's just go radical. Yeah, and I would probably agree with that at this point. Gojo says, you're always professional, Maya. Good man. Well, I wish I was, but I don't wish I was that professional, because that would be too polished and boring and scripted like the corporate media. But I tried to be objective and fun. With a little bit of a dose of craziness, but in a very moderate way, in a very British way, not in a French way. Kit Kat believes that they will sneak in by the back door. Not sure if that's an innuendo, or is that the French, or are we talking about the migrant votes or the European Union membership? It could be anything. Kit Kat could be anything. Paul Manning says, why don't we call their bluff? Refused to pay the fine and wait for the bailiffs to knock on number 10's door. Paul, if you watched the live stream earlier, one of the subscribers said they will probably send us more migrant boats if you don't pay the money. So pay the money now, immediately, get rid of them. But jokes aside, we need to have a conversation about the superiority of the European Court of Justice, because we're taking the EU to the same court soon on behalf of the Scottish administration, if you watched that video earlier tonight. And we're probably going to lose that fight anyway, because they're biased. So we have to have a conversation about the future. Angela says, night, Maya. If you're leaving the live stream, thank you so much, Angela, for joining us tonight. Everybody else, stay where you are. You're not going anywhere. But okay, so there was, as I said, there were a couple of things I wanted to talk to you guys about. One was about, obviously, the main update. For those who joined late, one of the reasons I'm being triggered or having a meltdown, as the left would say, is because not only the ruling on this red diesel nonsense was wrong against the UK, but the whole thing was about Northern Ireland, and the European judges and the European Commission, they calculated the size of GDP for the whole of the UK. That's why they said you have to pay us 32 million euros. That's a lot of money. We are not supposed to be paying that much. It's about 40 times more than what we were supposed to be doing. Maya, you're 1,000 times more of a journalist than most of the mainstream media, sad buggers. I am offended that you called me a journalist. I self-identify myself as a non-journalist. But no, I know. Thank you very much. Thanks for all the support. Harry says, to beer or not to beer? That's a very good question. I mean, to beer, but I don't have beer. I have. Wait here. Don't go anywhere. There we go. I have there we go. Nigel Farage gin, Farage the blue gin, and I also have the red gin. This is not sponsored, by the way. This video is sponsored by Nigel Farage gin. It's absolutely beautiful. If you haven't tried it, definitely try the Farage gin. All right, I'm back. What's going on? All right, so yeah, as I said, one of the updates was about that. The other one was about Rishi Sunak being upset that the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, has come out against multiculturalism, and he's not happy. So tomorrow, I'm going to do a whole video on Rashid Sunak for being a weak coward and for supporting multiculturalism. And I'm going to use that opportunity once again to remind a lot of people, liberal-minded people, that multiculturalism is very different to multiracialism. Yeah, so KitKat is going too. Thank you, Maya. Sorry, got to go. Don't worry, guys. I also need to go. I just saw the Farage gin. I think I'm gonna have to start drinking gin. Also, I think I'm gonna have to go out at some point to meet some friends. But yeah, so that's the latest update on both of those fronts. I'm gonna keep you guys posted tomorrow morning. As of today, earlier today, we started to do a morning briefing live stream, and we're going to do evening debrief live stream. So throughout the day, we have the quick updates, video updates. Make sure to watch all of them when you have time. But in the morning, usually around, well, depending on the day, 10 o'clock, 11, sometimes 9, we're going to come to you guys for a briefing session, live stream. And then in the evening as well, probably around this time, we'll come to you guys with a debrief live stream. Thank you so much for all the support and all the love. I'm Maya Tusi, and we are the media.